Namo Amitabha Buddha. Hello everyone. So I received messages from someone who was asking about why is it such a big deal to exit the cycle of reincarnation, and why you keep talking about seeking rebirth to the Pure Land and to exit the cycle of reincarnation. What is the big deal anyway if we just forget everything when we come back? Isn't it kind of fun to also just not remember anything and come back again and to create a new life from the scratch? And why does it matter if we suffered before, since we forget everything? So I think that was kind of his reasoning about, why does it matter if we just forget everything anyway? Why do we care about exiting the cycle of reincarnation? Okay, so this is not fully understand what the cycle of reincarnation actually entails. So it's called the 6 realms of reincarnation: heaven, asura, human, animal, hungry ghost, and the hellish realms. It's not just one realm. So some people think, it's not a big deal, the cycle of reincarnation. I am happy to be here if we're gonna come back anyway. So they think they're gonna come back as a human. But this is actually rare. To reincarnate in the 6 realms as a human is extremely rare. So in the Mahaparinirvana Sutra, the Buddha used a metaphor to illustrate how difficult it is to actually obtain rebirth as a human, and even rarer to encounter the Dharma. So in the Mahaparinirvana Sutra, the Buddha says, "Birth in the world as a human is difficult, and meeting the Buddha in the world is as difficult as a blind turtle in the great ocean meeting a floating log with an opening." So the human realm is considered to be the best realm out of all the 6 realms, because in the human realm one has the best opportunity to encounter Dharma, to practice Dharma, so we have the opportunity to exit the cycle of reincarnation. If you don't mind being like a mouse, a snake, a pig in your next life, getting killed by human or being slaughtered for food by humans, then it probably doesn't matter for you to be in the cycle of reincarnation. If you don't mind being a ghost in your next life, or ended up in the hellish realm to endure all those sufferings for countless lifetimes, then it probably also doesn't matter for you. So even ascending to heaven is not the end. One is still in the cycle of reincarnation, and for people who ascend to the heaven realm, there is a time that they have to fall down, and it's likely to the 3 evil paths. Why is that? Because they enjoy so much pleasures and desire up there in the heaven. It really aggregates their craving for pleasures. And at the time of death, they suddenly realize all this has to end. So it's likely that it will give rise to thoughts like anger, which will make them fall into the hellish realm. So anger corresponds to the hellish realm. And one may be like, I don't believe there are other sort of realms and dimensions out there. I think we will just come back as a human. Well, there are really people in this world with past life memories who remembered in their past lives they were a cow or a pig. Or I remember a reincarnation document I watched by this man. He had this extreme obsession in eating, in food. He really loves eating all the time. He just couldn't stop, and he couldn't even understand why he had this habit. And it was during a past life regression he found out that in one of his past lives, most likely the recent past life, his last past life, he was a whale, and not just a whale, but a leader amongst a lot of whales. So they had really huge appetite. That was why he couldn't stop eating in this life. So we actually carry a lot of our attachments, separation, a lot of bad habits, bad karma with us when we reincarnate. And sometimes in our life, we encounter really unfavorable circumstances, and we don't even know why. What kind of karma, what kind of deeds we have committed in the past that make us have to go through this kind of suffering. So in the cycle of reincarnation, the suffering is really endless. So I'm not even gonna talk about the sufferings down in the 3 lower realms because people may not believe, and the sufferings down there is really unspeakable. But if we just look at the human realms, how much suffering there is in this human realm, especially during this time we see in the news every day, how many people are dying, how many people are suffered due to various causes, and there are just so many tragedies in the world. And even for all the pleasures and happiness we experience in this human realm, it's all temporary, transient, and fleeting in nature. Because all is impermanent here, there is absolutely nothing you can grab hold of. So even if you are the richest person in the world, that you have everything, like say you have a perfect life, but eventually you still have to die. Death, sickness, illness, these are just inevitable suffering for all beings who are here. If we are being trapped in the cycle of reincarnation, it just means we have to keep repeating this painful process of death and rebirth and mundane existence again and again for countless lifetimes. It's a bit like a rat being trapped in a rat race. The suffering is ongoing. It will never end. It will only end until we exit the cycle of reincarnation. People like Arahants, Bodhisattvas, and the Buddhas, they have realized this truth, and they all successfully exited the cycle of reincarnation. And some people may be like, so where do they go after they exit the cycle of reincarnation? So they don't necessarily need to go anywhere. For instance, if we have an enlightened being here who maybe obtained Arahant, so he can be in the same space, same dimension with us, but he is no longer affected by the other phenomena. He is absolutely non-attached to any phenomena in this existence. So he is not affected, and even at the time of death. So there's no death actually. It's just the decay of this physical body. So they are free to choose where they want to go. They can be in different dimensions, in different worlds, or they can also remain in this world. But they are absolutely free to choose. However, for us ordinary beings, because we have not realized enlightenment yet, so when we are in the cycle of reincarnation, if we don't practice Amitabha recitation to seek rebirth to the Pure Land, and again we will just be back in the cycle of reincarnation in accordance to our karma. So it's also a bit like the frog in a deep well, that when we look up at the sky, we could only see the sky that is as big as the cover of the well. And we thought that was it, that was like the entire existence. We thought that was the norm. But whereas for beings who jump out of this cycle of reincarnation, they really jump out of this well, and then they could see the entire sky. There are actually so many other worlds, other dimensions out there that are so much better than our world here, and there are beings who live without the need of suffering. There are beings who live with eternal peace and bliss. There are beings who can travel to all different worlds, different dimensions at ease, at will. They don't have to experience the suffering of old age, illness, sickness, and death, unlike in this world. So our Buddha nature is really infinite life and infinite light. We really don't have to experience this repetitive death all the time. So the higher level of enlightenment you are, the more travel range you have in different dimensions and in different worlds. For high levels of bodhisattvas like Yin and also Buddhas, they can really be everywhere all at once. They are totally free. They can be in the entire Dharma realm. So they realize the emptiness of the mind. They have realized the Dharmakaya, and the Dharmakaya is really everywhere. The Buddha nature is everywhere. So in the sutras, Buddha often used the moon as a parable for the Buddha nature, the Dharmakaya. So in the Mahaparinirvana Sutra, the Buddha says, "Good man, take for example the full moon appearing in its entirety, in every place among the cities, villages, and hamlets, the mountains, in the rivers, or wells, or ponds, and in containers of water. In all this its reflection appears. The Tathagata's real nature is like that of the moon, and so the essential body, the Dhammakaya, is an unarisen body. The nature of the Tathagata is really without any birth or death. It's for the sake of transforming sentient beings that he makes a show of being born or dying. So the Buddha often refers himself as the Tathagata, which means the one who thus comes, the one who really transcends all coming and going. So they can also choose to come back and help us, to show us as an ordinary being, like what Shakyamuni Buddha did, and to display things such as sickness and death. But he did not really die. It was called Nirvana. So after that, he could be in different worlds to help other beings. Or he could just be in everywhere. The Dhammakaya is always everywhere. So the life of the Buddhas, the Bodhisattvas, the highly enlightened beings are really so incredibly blissful, rich, wonderful, that is really beyond the comprehension of our mind. And that is why Shakyamuni Buddha really urged us to seek rebirth to the Pure Land, especially during this Dharma declining age. This is really the easiest method, easier path for us to exit the cycle of reincarnation without first obtaining enlightenment. In fact, now in all different branches of Mahayana Buddhism, we all see people practicing Amitabha recitation in order to seek rebirth to the Pure Land, because it's just too difficult for one to realize enlightenment by relying on the self-effort. And some people are like, oh, how do you know if it's true, right? If it's just said in the sutra? Well, first of all, Buddha is a completely enlightened being. Buddha will not lie to us. And secondly, we have really seen a lot of proof of successful rebirth cases of people who obtain rebirth to the Pure Land, have seen Amitabha Buddha, have seen the Pure Land. So there are countless of living proof and evidence that have shown this path is really genuine, is genuine teaching by the Buddha, and we should not even doubt about this. So for nearful practitioners, we should really try our best to exit the cycle of reincarnation in one lifetime. Since we already encountered this Dharma at this time, then there's really no reason for us not to exit the cycle of reincarnation in one lifetime. Although for the beings who hear the name of Amitabha Buddha, if one cannot exit the cycle of reincarnation for one lifetime, it also plants the seed for future liberation. However, the future, we just don't know how long it might be. It could also be, again, countless eons. Because being in the cycle of reincarnation is actually a highly risky business, because we just don't know which realm we might end up in our next lives. If we reincarnate as an animal, or end up in the ghost realm, or worse, in the hellish realm, then there's no way we will actually have the ability to comprehend the Dharma, let alone to practice it. So it's really tremendously important for nearful practitioners to cultivate our practice, to have deep faith and vow to cultivate good deeds, good karma, so to ensure that we will definitely obtain rebirth in one lifetime to Amitabha Buddha's Pure Land, and to be free from the cycle of reincarnation forever. Namo Amituofo Buddha.